In this video, I'm going to show you how to switch between angles of a G3 character in Cartoon Animator. Now this video is a continuation of my last video where I showed you how to make a character get into a car and drive away. And in that video I did a bit of a cheat with how the character opened the door because I didn't want to include all the animation needed to swap the angles of a character to make him open the door a little more realistically. So in this video I'm showing you how to do that, and I'm showing you this character opening the door as a real person would more likely open a car door and get into the car. So I thought that would be a useful mini lesson, and it was a lesson inspired by a comment from the last video. So with that in mind, let's just get on with it. So in the last video I made this animation showing a policeman walking over to a car, getting inside and driving away, and I mentioned that in that video that the way he opens up the car door here is very much a cheat, and that no one really opens up a car door that way. But the reason why I did this is because this particular tutorial from this video was about the character getting into the car and driving away, not so much about making the character look realistic in how he actually gets into the car. And I didn't want to make the video longer by animating him in a more realistic way for getting in the car. So in this video, which will hopefully be shorter, I'm just going to quickly show you how I changed this animation so that the character gets into the car more realistically, and I'll show you what this looks like by turning on this character here, which is my side view of the character. Then we have to go into the timeline and go to this frame and turn off my original character. Now we'll go back to the start and I'll turn the timeline off, and I'll show you what this animation looks like, where the character gets into the car in a somewhat more realistic manner. So there you go, he's walking along, opens up the car door and gets in. And you see he turned towards the car door a lot more, so at this point he turns, opens up the door and then gets in. And I think you'll agree it's more realistic, still a bit rough around the edges, but it's more how most people would open up a door and get into a car. So in order to be able to do this, to make the character actually turn, these G3 characters only have one angle to them, but some characters the developer may have drawn 2 or 3 different angles. So we go into Maxim for Arts hack here. You can see this policeman has 3 angles. We've got a front facing angle, side facing angle, which is side facing 1 or a 315 degree angle. So it's sort of half facing us and half facing sideways. And then we've got this full sideways facing function. And you'll see when the character walks over to the car here, at some point he goes from his side facing function that's half side facing, and then he switches over to his full side facing, and then opens up the door and then switches back to side facing and gets in the car, shuts the door. Now as you saw, I was able to keep my original animation and just animate this character on top of that. I'm not going to show you in detail how I did this. I'm just going to give you an overview of the animation and show you my key points of what I did. Initially all I did, if I turn off my side 2 character, which is the one that turns the full side view, is I worked out at what point this character needed to actually turn more sideways to properly open the door, which is at this frame here, frame 57. I make him invisible, and then if I turn my secondary side facing character back on, he automatically turns on this frame, and we've got the full side facing character. And I'll go open up the timeline here. It's easier to control this from the timeline, and we'll zoom in on the character so you can see this better. You can see from this point, that's the original animation. I didn't change anything with that. All I did was turn the character off, and this is the new character, and all I did here was try to line him up as best I could with how he's standing in this shot. So you see it's kind of like the next movement from this shot to here, so his legs sort of taking that next step, and then this whole sequence of him moving to open the door is manually keyframed. There's no action that I could get out of the content library. You can see all of the different keys that I put in to actually keyframe the character, and I just sort of eyeballed it and estimated what he'd be doing for each point. You see it's not particularly smooth, like his hand. I haven't done anything with the sprite through his hands. I've just sort of kept it where the door frame is, or door handle is, and I've made him walk forward as he's pushing the door open, as a real person might. And you'll see once he's finished pushing that door open, starts to move back, and then between like this point down here, which is the last keyframe I did, I just went straight to the end keyframe and tried to match him back up with where I turned the original character back on, and this is back in with the original animation again that you saw me actually create, and he just gets in the car exactly the same way he did before. We just play this whole thing, and I'll keep it on this camera so you can see it in close-up. Takes off. So as you can see, it's not that hard to change the angle of a character and sort of add this in. I just didn't want to do this section at the time because it would have added another 10 to 15 minutes to what was already a 30-minute tutorial, but I thought it was worth doing this just to show you how you go about changing the angle of a G3 character if you need multiple angles of the character, and sort of how to use these multiple angles that you have in the content manager here. It's just basically a case of turning one character off at just the right time and turning the next angle of that character on at the same time as you turn the last one off, and you line up the limbs so that you get a kind of seamless transition between what the previous angle of the character was doing and the next one. So I hope you found that useful. As you saw, it's not that hard to swap between the angles of a character. It's just a case of lining up the movements so that you get a nice smooth transition when the character actually switches from one angle to another. So you don't want that jerky movement if the characters aren't properly lined up. So as I said, I hope you found that useful, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.